My name is Alex, 29 years old, and 6 months ago, I lived in Fontana with my girlfriend Nicole, 27. We had been together for 4 years. She was the one I thought I'd spend my life with. We met at a charity run in 2019. She twisted her ankle at mile 3, and I helped her to the medical tent. We got coffee the next week. She worked in graphic design at a startup downtown, and I was an accountant at a mid-sized consulting firm called Patterson and Associates. Our apartment was on the fourth floor of a building near the river. We adopted a cat from the shelter in our second year together. His name was Miso. Nicole picked it because she said he looked like a little soup dumpling. Everything was great until things started shifting unexpectedly in ways I couldn't explain. Around the beginning of this year, I noticed a subtle but definite change in Nicole's behavior. She started putting her phone face down on tables. She changed her passcode. I noticed because she used to let me order food from her phone when mine was charging. But one night in February, I reached for her phone to add something to our grocery list, and she grabbed it before I could touch it. She said she wanted more privacy. I didn't push. The late nights started in March. She told me the startup was launching a new campaign and her team was crunching. She'd leave at 7 a.m. and come back at 11 p.m. I believed her because she'd done it before during busy periods, but this time felt different. Her paychecks didn't reflect the overtime she was working. I saw one on the kitchen counter while I was sorting the mail. The hours looked normal. I brought it up once. We were having dinner at our usual Thai place on Tuesdays. I asked if everything was okay at work. She put her fork down and looked at me like I had accused her of something terrible. She said I was being paranoid and controlling. She said if I didn't trust her, maybe we had bigger problems. I apologized. I told her I was just worried about her being tired. She picked her fork back up and changed the subject. I started keeping track of small things without meaning to. The way she angled her body away from me when texting, how she started showering as soon as she got home instead of collapsing on the couch like she used to. The new underwear in her drawer that I'd never seen her wear around the apartment. I felt like I was losing my mind. Every time I considered asking again, I remembered the conversation at the Thai restaurant and kept quiet. In April, I did something I'm not proud of. I went to meet her best friend Jenna at a coffee shop. Jenna and Nicole had been friends since college. I told Jenna I wanted to propose and needed help designing a ring. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had been thinking about proposing before all this started. Jenna got excited and pulled out her phone to show me pictures of rings Nicole had saved on Pinterest. We met twice more to finalize the design. I put down a deposit with a jeweler on Market Street. The ring was supposed to be ready in June. Everything collapsed on a Tuesday in late April. My friend Marcus called me at work. He sounded uncomfortable. He said he needed to show me something, but didn't want to do it over the phone. We met at a bar near my office. He pulled out his phone and opened a dating app I'd heard of, but never used. He showed me a profile. The pictures were recent. Nicole at the park we walked Miso in. Nicole at the brunch place downtown where she went with her coworkers. The bio said she was relocating to Austin for a career opportunity and wanted to meet someone serious before the move. It said she was looking to start fresh in a new city with the right person. I sat there staring at the screen. Marcus asked if I was okay. I told him I needed to go. I walked back to my office and locked the door. I pulled up my phone and looked at our text thread. She'd sent me a message an hour earlier saying she'd be late again. I stared at it for a long time. That night, I didn't confront her. She came home at midnight. I was on the couch with Miso. She kissed the top of my head and said she was exhausted. She went straight to the bedroom. I stayed on the couch until I heard her breathing even out. Then I went to the spare room and opened my laptop. I spent the next 3 days building a profile on the same app. I used stock photos I found online of some guy with dark hair and a beard. I wrote that his name was Connor. I said Connor worked in the tech industry doing product management. Nicole had always talked about how she wished I was more ambitious, like the guy she saw on LinkedIn. I said Connor lived in Austin and had just bought a condo in the Pearl District. I mentioned he liked hiking and craft beer and indie music, all things Nicole posted about constantly. I set the location to Austin. I made Connor's bio sound like what she'd written on her profile, but from the other side, looking for someone ready to build something real. Tired of surface-level connections, ready for the next chapter. I matched with her on Thursday evening. My hands were shaking when I sent the first message. Connor asked how her day was. She responded in 10 minutes. We texted back and forth for an hour. I was sitting in my car in the parking garage of my office building. She was at home in our apartment. She told Connor she was excited to move to Austin. She said she'd been feeling stuck for a while. We continued texting like this for weeks. She was falling in love with someone who didn't even exist. Connor sent her good morning messages, asked about her design projects, and sent her songs he thought she would like. She sent him pictures of herself, told him about her day, and shared things she had never told me. One night, she told Connor that her current relationship had run its course. She said she cared about me, but we had grown apart. She said I was safe, but I didn't challenge her. She said she needed someone who matched her energy. Connor told her he understood. He reassured her that sometimes people grow in different directions. She responded with 3 heart emojis. I was in the bathroom when she sent that. I could hear her laughing in the bedroom. I stared at myself in the mirror, unable to recognize the man I had become. Connor suggested they meet up once she moved to Austin. He said his condo had a guest room, so she could crash there while apartment hunting. She said that was sweet, but she had already lined up a place. Then Connor mentioned his condo was 2 blocks away from her new office. I knew this because she'd shown me the address once when talking about the potential transfer. She got excited. She said maybe she should move earlier than planned to get settled. 3 days later, Nicole sat me down. We were eating dinner, pasta I made because she told me she'd be home on time. She said her company was opening an Austin office and they wanted her there by mid-May instead of July. She said it was a big opportunity, and she thought maybe we needed space to figure things out. I asked what things we needed to figure out. She said we'd been together a long time, and maybe we'd both changed. She said she still cared about me, but wasn't sure we wanted the same things anymore. She said all of this while staring at her plate. I asked if this meant we were breaking up. She said she didn't know. She said she needed time. I asked when she was leaving. She said 2 weeks. She moved out on a Saturday in early May. Jenna helped her pack. Jenna wouldn't look at me. I wondered if Nicole had told her about Connor, or if Jenna just knew something was wrong. I carried boxes down to the rental van. Nicole took me so. She said it made more sense since she'd be the one with a bigger place. I didn't argue. After the van pulled away, I went back upstairs and sat in the empty apartment. There were dust outlines where her furniture had been. I opened the dating app. Connor sent her a message asking how the move went. She responded immediately, saying it was bittersweet, but she was ready for this next chapter. Connor said he couldn't wait to meet her in person. I had Connor cancel their first date the day before it was supposed to happen. He told her something came up at work. She said she understood. They rescheduled for the following week. Connor canceled again. He said his mom was in the hospital. She sent concerned messages asking if everything was okay. Connor took 6 hours to respond. He said it was touch and go, but he'd keep her posted. This went on for 3 weeks. Every time they made plans, Connor had an emergency, a work crisis, a family obligation, a friend who needed help. Nicole's messages started getting shorter. She asked if he was actually interested. Connor reassured her, but kept canceling. In early June, she texted my real number. It was the first time she'd reached out since leaving. She asked how I was doing. I waited 2 hours to respond. I said I was fine. I asked how Austin was. She said it was an adjustment. She asked if I wanted to talk sometime. I said maybe later. I was busy with work. She didn't respond after that. Marcus told me she posted something on social media about giving people chances and getting disappointed. One of her friends commented asking if she was okay. Nicole didn't respond to that either. Then, in mid-June, one of her coworkers from Austin posted pictures from a happy hour. Nicole was in the background. Her eyes were red. Someone had tagged her. The caption said something about needing your work family when dating gets rough. I stared at that photo for an hour. I started having trouble sleeping. I'd lie awake thinking about what I'd done. I had created this whole person and convinced her to reorganize her life around him, and then made him disappear. She had moved to a new city. She had ended our relationship. She had told all her friends about this perfect guy, and none of it was real. I deleted Connor's profile at the end of June. I thought that would be the end of it. It didn't end. After I deleted Connor's profile, I thought maybe things would fade away. Nicole would move on. I'd move on. We'd both forget this happened. That lasted for about 3 days. On the 4th of July weekend, Marcus called me. His voice was tight with unease. He said people were asking questions. Apparently, Nicole had been talking to mutual friends. She had mentioned details about Connor that seemed strangely familiar. Inside jokes, specific phrases, references to things only I would know. I had been careless. When I was pretending to be Connor, I used expressions I normally used. I recommended restaurants I'd taken Nicole to. I made references to conversations we'd had. I didn't think she'd notice. I was wrong. Marcus said one of Nicole's friends from college had asked him directly if I had anything to do with this Connor guy. Marcus said he played dumb, but he wanted to warn me. Nicole was putting pieces together. That same weekend, I got a text from an unknown number. The message said she knew it was me. It said I was sick and she couldn't believe she'd ever loved someone capable of this. It said I'd wasted months of her life. It said I was a coward for not just talking to her. The text kept coming. 20 messages over 2 hours, each one longer than the last. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. She texted from a different number. I blocked that one too. Then she called my work phone. The receptionist at Patterson and Associates put her through before I could stop it. Nicole asked why I did it. Her voice sounded different than I remembered. Flatter, emptier. I told her I didn't know what she was talking about. She laughed. It wasn't a good laugh. She said she'd found receipts. She'd gone back through all of Connor's messages and matched them up with things from our relationship. She said only I would know about the time she got food poisoning from oysters. Only I would know her favorite lyric from that one song. Only I would know she was scared of driving over bridges. I hung up. She called back immediately. The receptionist transferred her again. This time, I told the receptionist I couldn't take calls from that number anymore. The next week, things escalated. Nicole started posting about what happened on her social media. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew who she meant. She said someone she'd trusted had created a fake person to manipulate her into moving away and ending their relationship. She said it was the cruelest thing anyone had ever done to her. She said she was sharing her story so other people wouldn't fall for the same thing. People I'd known for years stopped responding to my texts. Friends from college, people from work. Even Marcus started taking longer to reply. My coworker Janet stopped me in the break room one morning in late July. She asked if everything was okay. She said she'd heard some things. I asked what things. She said maybe I should talk to HR about taking some personal time. I asked why. She changed the subject and left. 2 days later, my manager called me into his office. There was someone from HR sitting there. They said they'd received a complaint. They didn't say who from, but I knew. They said the complaint alleged I engaged in harassment and manipulation of an ex-partner. They said, while it didn't directly involve my work, the firm had to take its reputation seriously. They said I wasn't being fired, but I was being put on notice. They said any further issues and they'd have to reevaluate my position. I nodded through the whole meeting. I went back to my desk. I couldn't focus on anything. The spreadsheet on my screen looked like gibberish. That weekend, Nicole sent an email to my personal account. It was long. She said she'd given me chances to come clean, and I'd chosen to hide. She said if I didn't admit publicly what I'd done, she'd make sure everyone knew. She said she had screenshots of everything. She said she'd already talked to a lawyer about what legal options she had. I read the email 5 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a drive. I ended up at the park where we used to walk miso. There was a couple there with a dog that looked like him. I sat on a bench and watched them throw a ball. They looked happy. I didn't respond to Nicole's email. I didn't post any confession. I just hoped it would blow over. People forget things. The internet moves fast. I thought maybe in a few months nobody would care. That was my second mistake. It didn't blow over. In mid-September, Nicole posted a video, not just a post, a whole video. She filmed herself in her Austin apartment, explaining everything that happened. She showed screenshots of Connor's profile. She showed the messages. She'd figured out how to match up timestamps with my location data from when we still shared a phone plan. She proved I was sending Connor's messages from Fontana while she was in our apartment thinking I was working late. The video was 12 minutes long. She cried in parts of it. She explained how she'd moved across the country for someone who didn't exist. She talked about ending a 4-year relationship because she thought she'd found something better. She said the worst part wasn't the catfishing itself, but that it was someone who supposedly loved her. She posted it on TikTok. It got 40,000 views in the first day, then 100,000, then 500,000. People started sharing it, commenting, stitching it with their own stories. One of the comments found my LinkedIn. Someone else found my Facebook before I could delete it. They found my employer. They found pictures of me and Nicole from before all this happened. They started putting the pieces together. By the end of September, I had strangers messaging me. Most of them called me names. Some of them said they hoped I got what I deserved. A few said they understood why I did it, but I'd gone too far. One person said they'd done something similar and regretted it, and I should get help before it got worse. It got worse. Patterson and Associates called me in again. This time it wasn't a warning. My manager said the firm had been getting emails and phone calls. Clients were asking questions. They said they couldn't have someone on staff who was becoming a liability. They said they were letting me go, effective immediately. They'd pay out my remaining vacation days. Someone would box up my desk and mail my things. I asked if they were serious. My manager looked at the desk instead of at me. He said they didn't have a choice. I cleaned out my locker in the parking garage. I drove home in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. The apartment was quiet. I sat on the couch where Nicole used to sit. Her dust outline was long gone, but I could still picture exactly where she'd put her feet up. My dad called that evening. He'd seen the video. Someone from his golf club had sent it to him asking if that was his son. He asked me if it was true. I said it was more complicated than the video made it seem. He asked how it could be more complicated than what she described. I didn't have an answer. He said he needed time to process this. He said he'd call me when he was ready to talk. That was 3 months ago. He hasn't called. By October, the video had over 2 million views. News websites picked it up. Local Austin stations interviewed Nicole. She started getting invited on podcasts about dating and relationships. She talked about red flags and manipulation. She talked about trusting your gut. People called her brave for sharing her story. She started getting sponsorships, companies that made wellness products, dating apps with better verification, self-help books about recovering from toxic relationships. Her social media following went from a few hundred to over 100,000. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had tried to ruin her life and instead gave her a platform bigger than she'd ever had. Meanwhile, I couldn't get a job. Every interview went fine until they Googled my name. Then they'd send a rejection email within hours. One recruiter was honest enough to tell me off the record that I was unhireable until this blew over. He said, maybe in a year or two. He said maybe longer. I burned through my savings. I stopped going to places I used to go because I'd run into people who recognized me. The coffee shop where I'd met with Jenna about the ring. The bar where Marcus showed me Nicole's dating profile. The Thai restaurant where Nicole said I was paranoid. In November, I got evicted. I'd missed 2 months of rent. The landlord was sympathetic, but said he had a business to run. I packed what I could fit in my car. I sold the rest. I drove to a motel outside the city and paid for a week with my credit card. That's where I am now. I left Fontana on December 3rd. I didn't tell anyone I was going. There was nobody left to tell. The motel I'd been staying at was raising rates for December, and I couldn't afford it anymore. I spent 2 days driving east with no specific destination. I stopped in a town called Millfield, about 6 hours away. Population 20,000. No connection to my old life. I found a room for rent in someone's basement, $400 a month. The landlord didn't ask many questions. I paid in cash for 2 months up front. I got a job at a warehouse on the edge of town. They hired me the same day I applied. The manager didn't care about my resume. He asked if I could lift 50 pounds and show up on time. I said yes to both. I started the next Monday. The work is simple. I unload trucks. I stack boxes. I scan inventory. Nobody there knows my name. They call me the new guy. I eat lunch alone in my car. I go back to the basement room after my shift. I don't own a TV. I read books from the public library. I stopped looking at social media in October. I don't know what Nicole is doing now. I don't check her pages. I don't watch her videos. I assume she's still growing her following. I assume people still support her. I assume she's doing better than me. My dad called 2 weeks ago. It was the first time since September. He said my mom wanted to know if I was alive. I said I was. He asked where I was living. I said I'd moved. He asked if I was working. I said I was. He asked if I understood why he needed space. I said I did. He said he still didn't know what to say to me. I said that was okay. We were on the phone for maybe 3 minutes. He said he'd call again in a few months. I haven't heard from him since. Marcus stopped reaching out in November. I don't blame him. I was the friend who lied to his girlfriend for months and then got exposed on the internet. That's not someone you stay friends with. Last week, someone at the warehouse asked if I'd ever been to Fontana. He said I looked familiar. I said no. He dropped it. I think about the ring sometimes, the one I commissioned with Jenna's help. I never picked it up. I wonder if the jeweler sold it to someone else. I hope whoever bought it is having a better time with it than I would have. I don't regret catching Nicole cheating. I regret every single choice I made after that. I could have confronted her when Marcus showed me the profile. I could have just broken up with her. I could have moved on like a normal person. Instead, I built an elaborate trap and climbed inside it myself. Nicole started the chain of events by lying and looking for someone else while we were still together. I don't forgive that. But what I did turned a regular breakup into something that cost me my job, my home, my family, and my future. She got hurt for a few months. I destroyed my own life permanently. I'm not posting this for sympathy. I'm not looking for advice. I just needed to write it somewhere. Maybe to remind myself how I got here. Maybe so there's a record that I knew exactly what I did wrong. I'll probably delete this account after posting. I'll keep working at the warehouse. I'll stay in Millfield or somewhere like it. I'll stay off the internet. I'll stay away from anyone who might remember what happened. Nicole won. She won bigger than she probably imagined she would when she made that first video. She got the fresh start she wanted. She got the attention she craved. She got to be the victim of a crazy story that people can't stop talking about. And I got exactly what I built for myself: nothing. As the weeks passed, I kept thinking things would settle, that the whirlwind of my past actions would slow down. But the reality kept hitting harder than ever. Nicole's story was gaining traction. She became the center of a viral scandal, and I was the villain in her tale. Every time I thought it might die down, it only seemed to grow bigger. In December, I saw her again. Not in person, but through a video on social media. She was sitting in a bright, airy apartment with a wide smile, talking to her followers about how she was embracing her new life in Austin, how she was starting fresh. The whole video was framed around her victimhood and how her ex had hurt her, how manipulative and controlling I had been. She spoke about finding herself again, how grateful she was for the people who'd supported her throughout everything. Her followers showered her with praise and sympathy. They sent messages telling her how strong she was, how she deserved the best. She became a role model for people who'd been in toxic relationships, a voice for the victims of betrayal and manipulation. I saw how far things had gone when I received a message from an old friend. She said she saw Nicole's video and couldn't believe how much of a monster I had become. She said she was sorry for what I had gone through, but she couldn't support someone who did what I did. Everywhere I looked, there was a reminder of what I had done. My name, my face, my past was plastered across social media in a way I could never undo. The more I tried to escape it, the more it followed me. I felt trapped, and I couldn't help but realize how much I had made things worse for myself. Even at the warehouse, people started whispering. A few of the workers, ones who had been friendly at first, started to give me strange looks. I could tell they had Googled me. Some of them even asked about my past. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the shadows and never be seen again. But it didn't stop there. One day, I received an email from the HR department at Patterson and Associates. They said that while they had originally let me go, they had received some complaints about the nature of my departure. They asked for an explanation or any comments I might have to clear the air. Apparently, the public fallout from the video had become a liability for them too. It hit me hard. My reputation, my livelihood, my career, everything was being destroyed by one stupid, vengeful decision I made. I should have stopped it all from the moment I saw Nicole's dating profile, confronted her, and ended things like an adult. But instead, I dragged both of us into a mess of lies, deceit, and pain. The worst part? I couldn't escape the feeling of guilt that haunted me every single day. Every mistake I made had a direct consequence that I couldn't take back. I kept thinking about Max, her little brother. I kept thinking about how, even though it wasn't my fault he was in this, how much I had contributed to the chaos in their lives. He would never know the full truth about what happened, but in my heart, I knew that everything I had done had hurt him in some way. As the months passed, I became more isolated. My father didn't call me back. I didn't hear from any of my old friends. The warehouse was the only place where I could hide, and even that felt like a temporary escape. I spent most of my free time in my small room, reading books from the library, trying to keep my mind occupied, trying to forget. But the memories of my past life, of Nicole, of everything we shared, kept creeping back into my thoughts, like ghosts that wouldn't leave. It was early February when I hit my lowest point. My mind had been spiraling for weeks, and the weight of everything that had happened finally crushed me. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay. I had nothing left. No friends, no career, no real purpose anymore. Just endless regret. The reality of my situation sank in deeper than ever before, and I couldn't escape it. I had been walking the streets of Millfield one night, trying to clear my head, but it felt like I was walking in circles. There was nothing to look forward to. The town was quiet, and I could hear my footsteps echo in the emptiness. I hadn't spoken to my father since that call back in October. I hadn't heard from Marcus. Nicole's face was still everywhere online. Every time I tried to search for a job, the responses were the same. Sorry, but we found another candidate. I felt trapped in a version of myself that I couldn't escape, a version I had created in a moment of selfishness and revenge. I knew it wasn't just the breakup that ruined everything. It was the actions I took after, the lies I built around myself, and the way I let my pride drive me to destroy everything I had. I still thought about Nicole all the time. Every moment we had shared, every laugh, every quiet morning with Miso curled up beside us. It felt like those memories were slipping away, and all I was left with was guilt. The loneliness became suffocating. I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I had no one left. Elena had her own family, and my father had chosen Sarah over me. Marcus had distanced himself. I had no friends to confide in, just the hum of silence in my motel room at night. The few people who had reached out had only done so because they had questions or concerns about Nicole's video. I knew what they were thinking. Who is this guy? What kind of monster does this? That night, I found myself staring at the screen, scrolling through Nicole's social media. Her followers had grown to over 100,000. She was being celebrated for her strength. I could see her smiling in photos with her friends, traveling, living the life she always wanted. And there I was, still in Millfield, working at a warehouse, haunted by my own mistakes. I thought back to the day I saw the profile on the dating app, the day everything started to spiral. I had acted out of pain, trying to catch her in something that would hurt her, just like she had hurt me. I thought it would make me feel better. I thought it would bring me justice. But instead it destroyed me. I was left alone, with nothing to show for it. I wondered if I would ever be able to forgive myself for what I did, for turning a normal breakup into something so much worse. I thought about Max and how I had failed him, how I had let him witness something ugly and cruel that he shouldn't have had to see. I had hoped that one day he would forget about all of this, but I knew that wasn't the reality. He would remember. He would carry the weight of it in his own way, just as I was carrying it now. As I sat on the edge of my bed in that small room, the loneliness weighed on me like 100 pounds. I couldn't breathe. There was no escape from the consequences of my actions. Every time I thought I was starting over, my past followed me like a shadow. It wasn't until mid-February that things began to change, though not in the way I expected. One morning, while I was working at the warehouse, I had a moment of clarity. It happened when I was lifting a box off the truck. My hands were sore, and my back ached from the repetitive motion. As I scanned the inventory, my mind wandered. For the first time in weeks, I stopped thinking about the video, the texts, the emails, and the endless cycle of regret. I had been living in the past for so long, replaying every mistake I made, every word I said to Nicole, every lie I had built. But now, in that moment, something changed inside me. I realized that this wasn't going to go away. I couldn't keep running from what I had done. I had tried to move forward, to pretend that things would just fix themselves over time. But they didn't. I kept telling myself it would be fine, that I would forget it all, and that eventually the world would forget me too. But the truth was, I couldn't hide from myself forever. I had to face what I had done, the harm I caused, and, more importantly, what I was going to do about it. For the first time, I thought about the people I had hurt, not just myself. I thought about Max, how he had been affected by all of this. I thought about Nicole, and despite everything, I couldn't ignore the fact that she had trusted me at one point. We had shared something real, and I had destroyed it. I couldn't fix the past, but I could do something to make sure this didn't define who I was for the rest of my life. Later that day, when I got home to my room, I took out my phone and stared at it for a long time. The temptation to scroll through social media to see what Nicole was up to was overwhelming. But I resisted. I knew I couldn't go back to that life. I had to stop being obsessed with her and what she was doing. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me taking responsibility for my actions. I knew what I had to do next. I reached out to Marcus. It had been months since we last spoke, but I couldn't keep hiding from my own mistakes. I sent him a message saying I needed to talk. When he replied, there was no judgment in his words, just a simple, "What's up, man?" And that's when I realized I wasn't alone in this. I had people who cared about me, even if they weren't exactly by my side through all the chaos. Marcus had been my friend for years. And even though I had pushed him away, he was still willing to hear me out. The conversation wasn't easy. I apologized for everything, for the lies, the deceit, and for making a mess of everything. I told him how much I regretted everything I did and how much I had lost. I asked him for his advice, for his perspective on how I could make things right. "I can't fix what happened," Marcus said, "but if you're serious about making amends, you have to start by facing your mistakes and showing people you're willing to change." It was simple advice, but it was the first real step I'd taken toward healing. I wasn't going to get a quick fix, and I wasn't going to be able to erase everything I had done, but I could start by being honest with myself and taking the first steps toward making it right. The next day, I called the therapist I had been avoiding for months. I knew I couldn't keep hiding from my feelings, from the deep shame and regret that had been eating at me for so long. I needed to confront my emotions, not just bury them. By the time March rolled around, things were different. Not better, but different. I had taken the first steps toward rebuilding my life, but the fallout from everything that happened was still very much present. After reaching out to Marcus and starting therapy, I felt some weight lifting off my shoulders. I was slowly starting to piece things together. The therapy sessions helped me untangle the mess of emotions I had bottled up for months. For the first time, I wasn't trying to escape from the consequences of my actions. I was facing them head on. But even with therapy, the real consequences were still unfolding. The damage I had done to my relationships, my career, and my reputation couldn't be fixed overnight. I had to accept that. One afternoon in early March, I finally heard from my dad. It had been months since we last spoke. He called me, his voice shaky, like he was unsure of what to say. I knew it was coming, but it still hit me like a ton of bricks. He told me that he had seen the video. He asked me if it was true. I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, Dad, it's true, but you don't have the full story." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Alex. This isn't the son I raised." It hurt to hear him say that. I knew I had let him down. I had broken his trust, and I didn't know how to fix it. But in that moment, I realized that I didn't need his forgiveness to move forward. I just needed to accept the reality of what I had done. "I know," I said quietly. "I've made mistakes, and I'm sorry for everything I've done." We didn't talk for long. My dad said he needed more time, and I understood. I didn't push. He wasn't ready to forgive me, and I had to live with that. It was clear that my relationship with him would never be the same. Maybe one day it would improve, but for now, I had to accept that. My dad had always protected Sarah, and by doing so, he had enabled her behavior. That was something I couldn't just forgive overnight. As for Marcus, he was more understanding than I could have hoped for. We talked about everything, how I had manipulated Nicole, how I had let my jealousy and pain dictate my actions, and how I had destroyed something real for no good reason. It wasn't easy, but over time, things between us began to heal. He wasn't sure if we would ever go back to the way things were, but he said he was willing to give me the chance to prove I could be a better person. That was all I could ask for. The hardest part of the fallout, though, was knowing that I couldn't change the way Nicole viewed me. She had moved on. She was still growing her social media presence, still getting sponsorships and endorsements. She was the face of a viral story that would be remembered for a long time, and I would forever be the villain in it. The world would remember her as the brave woman who got manipulated, while I would always be the guy who did the manipulating. And I had to live with that. But I also realized something else in that time. I could control my future. The past was set in stone, but my choices moving forward were mine to make. I couldn't erase the mistakes I'd made, but I could build something new from them. It's been 6 months since everything fell apart. A lot has changed, but the biggest change has been within me. I've slowly started to rebuild my life, piece by piece, but the truth is, there's no going back to who I was before, and maybe that's okay. The job at the warehouse is still the same, but I don't mind it. The work is simple, and it's given me something steady to focus on. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. For now, that's enough. I've stopped thinking about Nicole all the time. I still have the occasional thought about her, what she's doing, if she's happy, or if she's still growing her influencer empire, but I don't let it consume me anymore. I stopped checking her social media. I've learned to live in the present rather than constantly trying to outrun my past. I still haven't heard from my dad. I don't expect to. Maybe one day we'll talk again. But that's not something I can rely on. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'll live with it. Marcus and I have repaired our friendship. We talk occasionally. He's not the same person he was before everything went down, and neither am I. We've both changed. But we're still there for each other, in our own way. It's not the same as it once was, but I'm grateful for what we have. As for the lessons I've learned, they're hard ones, but necessary ones. I learned that revenge never brings the peace you think it will. I thought exposing Nicole would make me feel better, would bring me some sense of justice. But all it did was destroy me, piece by piece. I learned that trust is fragile. It can be broken in an instant, and once it's gone, it's nearly impossible to get back. I learned that I need to face my mistakes head on, without running from them or hoping they'll just disappear. The only way to heal is by accepting responsibility and working to become a better person. I also learned that people change. Nicole changed. She wasn't the person I thought I knew. She became someone else, someone who sought validation through her online persona. I can't blame her for that, but I also can't keep carrying around the weight of what she did to me. I can't keep asking myself what went wrong. I've already learned that lesson. What I need now is to focus on myself. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get to the point where I can forgive myself. Maybe I already am. But for now, I'm focused on living my life, rebuilding what's left, and finding peace within myself. I'm learning to be patient with myself, to give myself the time I need to heal. I'm trying to let go of the shame that's followed me for so long. The future is uncertain, but it's mine to shape. I can't control the past, but I can control what I do from here on out. And that's enough for me. Thank you for reading through this story. I know it's not easy to understand everything that happened, but I hope it serves as a reminder of the importance of trust, honesty, and self-reflection. I've made mistakes. I've paid for them. But I'm still here, and that's all I can ask for. This chapter of my life is closing, but the lessons will stay with me forever. And with that, I think I can finally let go.